name is Shelley Henson. I'm the Community Safety Supervisor. I oversee the Public Safety Office here at the city. Tonight we have several speakers, so we're going to start with our students here to discuss their program in just a moment. And because it's a school night and actually finals are coming up, they're going to leave shortly after they finish their presentation. So as soon as they're done, I'll ask if there's any questions pertinent to their presentation, and then we'll move forward with our agenda. Just to remind you also, this presentation is being taped live. It's going to be on our city website as well as Channel 28, our city channel, and it will be replayed over the several upcoming months. So hopefully we'll reach out to more people than are here this evening. But again, thank you for coming. And first I'd like to introduce Angela Hefter, and she will introduce the students. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Shelley. Good evening. I'm Angela Hefter, and I'm a teacher at Palmdale High School Health Careers Academy. I'm the coordinator for the Health Careers Academy. My responsibility is to help promote students' education in the field of medicine, and we also in the academy, we belong to HOSA, which is Health Occupational Students of America, and the students that you're going to be presenting of tonight did a community awareness project, and the community awareness project they took to their state conference and were able to achieve a gold medal on their presentation. They're going to continue on with this project, and they're going to present on behalf of the state of California at the national level in Nashville, Tennessee in June. So I want to say again, thank you very much for your time. And with nothing further, I'll introduce the students, Allison Kosh, Eric Lenorgan, and Catherine Chan. And they'll introduce themselves and their project. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Catherine Chan.
I'm Allison Kosh.
Eric Lenorgan.
And we are Students Against Destructive Decisions. SAD is an organization that works to deliver education and prevention messages to people of all ages about different types of impairment. We created our own unique community awareness project to inform our community about the dangers of driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs and cell phone distractions. Our goal was to reach out to our peers before they made poor decisions and to decrease the number of impaired-related collisions amongst teenagers.
So here are some of the facts that we uncovered in researching for this project. Drugged driving doesn't usually get as much attention as drunk driving, but according to the U.S. Census Bureau, 13% of high school seniors reported driving high on marijuana, which is not at all far from the 14% who reported driving drunk.
Driver inattention is the leading cause of car collisions. The most prominent distraction a driver may face is their cell phone. A conversation held by the driver will increase their likelihood of an accident by 1.3 times. Dialing or texting on the phone will increase this chance by nearly 3 times.
Motor vehicle crashes remain the #1 cause of death to people ages 15 to 20, and 28% of these youths involved in accidents had been intoxicated. Teenagers tend to have an attitude of invincibility to many dangers, such as impaired driving. We see people texting and talking on phone every day and hear of accidents caused by driving impaired on the news nationwide. Since prom and graduation were coming up, we wanted to spread the importance of these issues to our peers before they were faced with the choice to partake in destructive decisions. Unfortunately, we have real examples of what a terrible impact these kinds of decisions can have on people's lives.
On September 12, 2008, Jacob Hefter's life was taken in a Chatsworth Metrolink crash. Jacob was an outstanding HOSA member and presented the Every 15 Minutes project last year against drunk driving.
Johanny Lobos was a member of our Health Careers Academy and HOSA chapter. She was an outstanding volunteer, but most of all, she was my good friend. On September 23, 2008, she was just using the crosswalk when she was struck and killed by a drunk driver. That driver's irresponsible decision took my friend's life, and we were determined to try our best to ensure that no one we had the power to reach would make the same kind of bad decision that took our friends' lives.
This project required a lot of organization and planning. The first step was to obtain a sponsorship, which we did from the RX Paris law firm. Next, we needed to gather a wide range of materials, which was a large undertaking in itself. When we finally did gather everything necessary to prove our point, we went through a lot of experimentation, trial and error to make sure our activity would go just right. We then created surveys with meaningful questions, distributed them, and created a high-impact PowerPoint presentation.
Long before our assembly, we began researching and drafting a survey to gauge our peers' choices and knowledge of driving decisions. Then, 2 days prior to the event, with the help of our chapter, we distributed and collected the survey to use in our presentation.
On January 30th, 2009, we presented our SAD project to 450 of our fellow students from freshmen to seniors. Thanks to our experts law firm, through our educational pamphlets, awarding of t-shirts for correct answers to questions, and memento keychains, we were successful in promoting our HOSA chapter. On the back of our pamphlet, there was a pledge with which students could promise to themselves to avoid destructive decisions, which to our surprise, students committed to, signed, and returned to us without us asking it of them.
During our presentation, we utilized the PowerPoint we created to not just say, oh, this is bad, don't do it, but to really educate our audience on the physiological effects of intoxicants and phone distraction. As an addendum to the alcohol and drunk driving portion of our presentation, we presented the Every 15 Minutes video, which helped to drive home our point not only by its own sobering content, but by the fact that we could point out how its creator had his life snuffed out by destructive decisions.
Our hands-on activity demonstration consisted of volunteers mounting on tricycles and riding on a simple course. Some wore impairment goggles, some texted on their cell phones, and some were unimpaired. With this activity, we were able to show that the slight loss of motor skills by the impairment goggles and cell phone distractions caused our volunteers to veer out of their lanes, ignore signals, and to have collisions with other tricycles and pedestrians. Through this demonstration, we were able to show the audience the bigger picture, that if the tricycles were too hard to control while being impaired or distracted, getting behind the wheel of a 2-ton motor vehicle under such conditions was out of the question.
We had 3 guest speakers, Mike Michoni and Doug Sweeney, who were former California Highway Patrol officers. They shared their experience of tragedies concerning impaired driving. Our 3rd guest speaker, Dr. Hadavudi, an EMS doctor, spoke about the success you can meet with in life when you do not make destructive decisions.
We arranged media coverage with our local newspaper and television news. And now we'd like to show you our television news coverage.
Today, a group of Palmdale High students, with the help of their teacher, took a stand against destructive behavior, and 450 of their peers listened. SoCal News reports.
It's very difficult because it's been just a short time that our son has passed away, and the feeling of this is very powerful.
Angela Hefter and her husband looked on through tears at some of the 12th graders Mrs. Hefter teaches. These seniors warn fellow students about destructive decisions.
It only takes, a split second for you to make a bad decision, whether it's texting and driving or, picking up your phone while you're driving or drinking and getting in the car impaired, and that could ruin somebody's life.
The Hefters know this lesson all too well. Their teenage son Jacob was one of 25 people killed in a Chatsworth Metrolink crash September 12, 2008. The engineer was reportedly text messaging when he ran a red light.
The decision of that engineer took Jacob's life.
Jacob went to school with these teens and was in the same healthcare academy program.
That affected me personally, and I think it affected everyone in the academy.
Along with another student, Johanny Lobos, who was killed only a few weeks after Jacob.
All Johanny was doing was using the crosswalk, and somebody hit her and drove off who was drunk.
Now,
you do something like that
through speech to demonstrate the dangers of drunk driving. And even though it is difficult and personal, the Hefters say they don't mind being an advocate for this cause.
If we can do one thing to save somebody's life, then that's what our goal is.
Jacob Hefter was an organizer of the Every 15 Minutes demonstration against drunk driving when he was at Palmdale High. Students and Hefter's families say they consider today's program part of his legacy.
Some definite cons we faced while we organized this event was that it was still a delicate matter to address. We had major technical issues involving different Microsoft versions and formatting the video interview to work correctly on PowerPoint. We had to deal with few teens who felt they were virtually invincible and had really stubborn attitudes towards the subject. We had one SAD coordinator who could not attend the HOSA conference, and we also needed to deal with the pressure of being seniors with our futures in mind.
We felt our project really succeeded in bringing the community together to make a positive impact. We were able to produce a creative, original presentation which informed our audience and was a learning experience for us as well. Because of the events we described before, we had tremendous support from our Health Careers Academy and HOSA chapter. They really helped us draw something positive from terrible tragedy and carry on our friends' legacy of inspiration and education. We are in the process of producing a video from our presentation, which we will distribute throughout the wider community to spread our message of responsibility. One time during the presentation that we knew we had changed perspectives was during our open forum. One girl told us how her parents had told her it was unsafe to text and drive and she had ignored them, but after participating in our assembly, she was determined to make better choices in the future.
Thank you, and this concludes our presentation.
Any questions?
Any questions specific to their presentation? Yes, I met them for the first time last week at our Criminal Justice Commission meeting, and I was very impressed, not only with their efforts, but their courage, and I'd like to thank them again for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just a side note, they're going to be commended next week at our city council meeting here at 6 p.m. for all that they're doing. So if you'd like to join us next week at council.
Oh, good evening. My name is Deputy Michael Montestioca, assigned to Lancaster Station, and we're here to discuss street racing and safe driving. Sorry, thank you. Yeah, I did some research before coming out here and doing this, and Sergeant Graham, who's one of our sergeants, is also in charge of our LASD racing team, told me to get on the website before we came over, and surprisingly enough, the website gave me a lot of information. To date, throughout the country, there have been 54 accident-related deaths in regards to street racing, and those are just the ones that have been reported. So I'm sure the number's gone up, but it's something that we face, every day. I see it virtually every day. Little rice rockets running down the streets, and now the motorcycles are getting involved in it. It's really irritating when I'm driving in my own personal vehicle and I see them popping the wheelies or just acting a fool, 2 or 3 motorcycles down the road, and I kind of feel a little helpless because I'm not in my black and white and I can't go after them. By the time I end up calling one of the 2 sheriff stations, they're gone in the wind. The only thing I hope for is that, one, they don't crash into some innocent bystander and cause major injury. So, and we're going to be discussing throughout the period, safe driving, what to do, what not to do, other examples. But I want to go ahead and introduce Sergeant Scott Graham. Again, he's in charge of our LASD racing team, and he'll be going over some information about racing, why not to race in the street, and where to go do it. So, sir.
Thanks, appreciate it. Sergeant Scott Graham, I've been on the Sheriff's Department for over 21 years. I have maintained and I have 2 professional drag racing cars that I race with the endorsement of the Sheriff's Department. We've had a program, LASD Motorsports, going into our 14th year, where we've been going to schools and car shows and community events to stress the importance of education, anti-drug and gang, and anti-street racing is what it is. They've asked me tonight to talk about some of the alternatives to the street racing that goes on out here, and a lot of it does go on in the Antelope Valley. A lot of it in the outskirts, mostly it's highly organized with police scanners and 2-way radios and all kinds of stuff so that they don't get caught, basically. I'd like to emphasize the difference between drag racing and street racing. Many of the times the news media misconstrues it. Drag racing is done on a racetrack, not on the street. Street racing is obviously done on the street. Like Deputy Montez de Oca said, there already this year in 2009, already 54 deaths, documented street racing deaths around the country. A lot of these things aren't going to be reported as street racing deaths because by the time everybody runs and hides and they end up in the hospital, it's going to just be a traffic accident. There are several alternatives. We had one up here up until July of 2007, which was Los Angeles County Raceway. And every Friday night, people were able to go out, bring their vehicle and a driver's license, no matter if it was a race car or mom's Mercedes, out to the drag strip and race it for, I think it was $15 at the time. And on any given Friday night, there were over 100 vehicles out there. Now, these are 100 vehicles that would have been off the streets of the Antelope Valley. LACR has since closed. There is no racetrack local up here. The closest racetrack to have a street legal program is once a month in Fontana at Auto Club Speedway. It costs $20 to race your car and $10 to spectate. The next closest one is Irwindale Drag Strip down in Irwindale, and they are open every Thursday night, and it's $20 to race, $10 to spectate. And basically, if you have a driver's license, you can race any vehicle down there at this track. I've been down there on several occasions with my race car just to go down there and support the efforts, and there's over 300 vehicles there on a Thursday night from around Los Angeles County. Now, these are all cars. You might say, that's not a whole lot of cars, but that's 300 people that have decided not to take it on the street, jeopardize their lives and public safety throughout Los Angeles County. The next available racetrack is in Bakersfield, and they are open every other Friday night. It costs $20 to get in with a car and a license and $15 to spectate. Now, many of you think like, oh, that's great, those are nice and close, but you get a lot of people, and I tend to remember back in my youth when I was working so I could put performance modifications on my vehicles. Who wanted to drive over 90 miles to test my car when I could do it out on the street for free? Even with the tough economic times right now, the aftermarket industry for racing parts is booming. Anytime I go to order a part, I'm about 6 weeks out for a part that is not in stock for a racing part. Now, that's just for not only for racing vehicles, but all these street cars that are out there too. And there are several performance shops up here in the Antelope Valley that do these performance modifications, sell these parts. It's not limited just to Antelope Valley. It's all over the country. Canada, Puerto Rico is big. Drag racing is big, and road racing is big around the world. The problem we have is not, it's illegal to do it on the street, but once again, who wants to go test their vehicle at over 90 miles away when they can do it in all this open area out here? As you might remember, a couple of years ago out on Avenue G, which is nice, 6 lanes of nice straight road out there, there was a street racing accident out there. Had nothing to do with the street racing except that a drunk driver was headed home and hit all the spectators and killed, I think, 2 of them in the crowd and injured, I think, a total of 4. Okay? That was because they're out there street racing. It wasn't technically a street racing related incident, but it was a drunk driver headed home that ended up wiping out people in the crowd. Now, the benefit of being at a racetrack is it's a closed environment. You're not going to have cross traffic. All the racing goes one's direction, which is nice. And if you have to pass a technical inspection with your car, the faster it goes, the more safety equipment is required in the car. And whereas out on the streets, you never know what's required. You never know what you're up against. And for another thing, too, they always have emergency crews on standby in case there is an accident. There are deaths related to drag racing every now and again, but for the most part, a lot of people, especially in the professional ranks, who are doing over 300 miles an hour in 4.5 seconds and a quarter mile, if they crash, they normally walk away. They're a little bumped up, but there's also the Safety Foundation that has requirements for all the fire suits, roll cages, bars, and all the safety equipment related to these cars, trying to make it safer. Granted, everything's dangerous. Walking across the street's dangerous. Driving to work's dangerous. But if we can get these alternatives out there for people to take their vehicles, it would greatly reduce the risk to citizens in the community. Anybody have any questions for me about any of these topics? Yes, sir.
If I can make a comment. I'm a member of California Sports Car Club, and as a member of California Sports Car Club, that makes me an owner of Buttonwillow Raceway in Bakersfield.
Correct.
So we do, road racing, and I also do marketing promotion with SCCA and Speed World Challenge. And I think it's great to get people off the street and get them on the track where, like you brought out, there's help if you have an accident. It's promoting a safe environment and everything. It's a good way to do it.
Everybody who races understands that. The problem is getting the people who don't want to go there to the track to understand the benefits of going to the racetrack.
There's also an event coming up the last weekend of the month, which attracts a lot of the import races and so forth. It's a track attack up at Willow Springs Raceway and a big car show and everything. And that'd be a good opportunity to get a lot of the young people out there and see an alternative to street racing.
Correct. There's nothing more irritating than driving down the 14 freeway and having a little Honda or Acura go buzzing 95 miles an hour past you. And a lot of the accidents I've seen going up and down the freeway are just purely because people are driving way too fast. Racetracks are important. It's an outlet for people to go. I don't know. I'm an advocate of having racetracks. Yes, ma'am.
What can we do just as normal citizens if we see something like that going on? If we see someone driving past us at 95 miles an hour, or you see, two little rice rockets getting ready, you can hear their engines, revving.
Well, a lot of times if you're able to, you can get license plates and you can pretty much call 911 because all the 911 cell calls now go to the local jurisdiction of police stations and the highway patrol. I'm going to let Sergeant Dunn talk more on the enforcement of these things. But, yeah, it's really irritating. And when they're doing 95 miles an hour, by the time you get through and actually give something, they're already gone. But having a license plate helps for future incidents. Yes, ma'am.
What about the off-road vehicles? Because on our street, we live across from East Side High, we've noticed more, noticed more off-road vehicles racing down our street, just by themselves.
Like dirt bikes, quads, things like that. Mm-hmm. You can call the sheriff's station.
Okay.
And report that because those definitely are not allowed on the street, off-road vehicles.
Thank you.
If I can just add to that, again, get a license plate if it has one and a description and the direction they're headed, or I realize sometimes they're headed to a field in their neighborhood. That would be deemed a routine call, though, and in order for them to be cited, the deputy has to see them themselves, but it's still important and vital, obviously, to call when you're seeing them.
That's correct. Great. Any other questions for me? Great. Deputy Montez de Oca.
Yeah, along the same lines of what Sarge was talking about, the enforcement of the street racing is important, but also as parents and grandparents, we need to keep an eye on our kids, grandkids, because, we're buying them cars, and it's cool if they want to fix them up, but there's little signs that you need to watch out for. Like Sarge said, buying parts for them, the modifications. We need to pay attention to all that because you may be innocently buying them a car, and then a couple weeks later they're buying parts for it, and then they're off, and doing their thing in the race. Reason why I bring that up is, we have a lot of teenagers that are really slick about what they do with their cars. We took a class last year, Sergeant Dunn and I took a class last year on street racing, and it was put on by Ontario PD, which was really, really good. You'd have thought that the two cars they had there, you looked at them, regular stock cars, pop open the hoods, and there's all these modifications to the engine, the different intakes, and they showed us how to look for this kind of stuff. Just little signs. So again, it's important that when we do go out and buy cars for our children, grandchildren, as a gift, keep an eye on them, because like anything else, it's like a computer. What do we tell people? Keep an eye on your kids on the computer because you never know what's going to happen. Same thing with the car. As far as the enforcement of this whole entire program or the segment that we're talking about don't ever think that we're too busy to call. For you to call us. We'll get someone out there. Obviously, it's a traffic-related thing. They'll assign it to the traffic units. But we get lucky too, where we're driving around. It's a nice, quiet night, and all of a sudden we hear the engines rev up. Well, then that's our sign to go down the street, do our thing, and then catch them coming down the street. I did work traffic for a couple of years, and that was my main thing, was going after little speeders and these modified cars. They didn't like me, and I towed several cars, but you know what? Each car I took off the street, I knew that they were going to go out and race. Like the Sarge said, you know, those 100 cars that go out and race, those cars are actually out there not jeopardizing anybody. Well, I was doing the same thing. It just goes, you know, to you folks that we do pay attention and we are out there. You know, we do get busy. So, you know, as far as reporting the street racers and, you know, safe driving, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Sergeant Dunn. He is our traffic sergeant, and I had the pleasure of working for him for a little while, and he'll go over that stuff, and if there's any questions, I'm sure hoping more than I can answer them.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brian Dunn. I'm the traffic sergeant at Lancaster Sheriff Station. Just took over the position about, just short of a year and a half ago. Before that, I didn't have much experience in traffic. I should say I didn't have any experience in traffic other than citing people once in a blue moon. I worked crime car all of my career, and then the detective bureau, following up on crimes of robberies and assaults. Traffic was pretty new to me. I really didn't grasp or understand the importance of traffic enforcement until I got to traffic. After seeing the statistics and seeing, you know, I made a habit of reading reports, reading every citation that came before me, actually came through the traffic bureau, boggled my mind. Unbelievable how many people are violating traffic laws out there, how many traffic collisions are occurring in our little city of Lancaster. It's mind-boggling, and it's actually disgusting. There's so many people blatantly violating laws, endangering themselves and endangering you, your families, myself, my partners, everything. It's very scary. There's too many people nowadays blatantly ignoring traffic laws. People are getting stopped. Let's say the few people that have the luck of getting stopped several times in a year will call me and complain, or write an official complaint complaining that the deputies are too harsh, that they should be out there taking criminals to jail. Well, if you get in a traffic collision and you take somebody's life, you're a criminal, okay? It's manslaughter. If it's something that you did by violating laws, it's the act of manslaughter, everything. That is a crime. There's more deaths by traffic incidents, I think this is known by everybody, than official acts of murder in the United States. Everything. More people die by way of traffic collisions. So that means it's very important that we, the Sheriff's Department and CHP and all other law entities, uphold the vehicle code. Our vehicle code is for the state of California, and we uphold it. We have basically a zero tolerance in traffic offenses. And I know it sounds cold. I know nobody likes getting a traffic cite. I've gotten my share of traffic citations. A lot of people think because you're law enforcement, you got a free ticket, you don't get a ticket. That's not true, okay? We are responsible and we're held responsible. My guys are out there to do a job. The city pays them to do a job. They pay them to protect the citizens of Lancaster, the city of Lancaster. And the way to protect them is to try to get them to slow down and or obey traffic laws. And if they can make a difference of one person out there, that's one less person or several less person from one person's actions, that might make a big difference. Everything. Obviously, out there, as often as our traffic guys are, enforcing traffic laws, I think you've all seen them. We've got motor officers out there. They seem to be everywhere. These guys are awesome, upholding the laws. They write a lot of traffic cites for a lot of different violations that are being done out there. And I know in my mind, and I know they know in their minds, that they're making a difference. And sometimes it's difficult because people feel that we're picking on them or it's cold and we can just give them a warning and that'll make the difference. warnings we've found in the field of law enforcement do not change people's actions. Okay, discipline changes people's actions. We write the citation, they go to court, court imposes the discipline. That's not always, but that sometimes is what changes people's bad habits of driving badly. All right, so I just wanted to put that out there. As far as road racing in the city of Lancaster, and also we have to include the county, the unincorporated areas around Lancaster, because we, the Sheriff's Department, patrol those areas also. CHP actually would take any traffic collisions in the unincorporated areas of Antelope Valley outside of Lancaster, but we still will respond if a call comes in, street racing is going on or something of such and everything. So please call the station. If we get the call, and if our units are not tied up in a more heinous crime, they will respond. I know sometimes it's frustrating, like the lady up front here complained about people riding their little off-road motorcycles and quads and stuff like that up and down the street. It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. We can't be all places at one time. We certainly wish we could. We're trying to improve on that. The city has given us the means to improve on it. We have actually improved considerably, but there's more room for improvement. We will try to respond to all calls for service where you have a problem. Please help us as much as possible so we can get to the bottom of the problem. If we keep getting there 30 seconds too late or 5 minutes too late or such, try to get as much description as you can. If you know where these people live, or if you know who they hang out with on the street and you can talk to those, if you have a rapport with those people, try to pick their brains and find out where they live. Next time you see them racing up and down, if we get there and they're gone, ask the desk when you call them in to contact you. The deputies will contact you, give them the information that you learned, then the deputies can follow up further, and they have a better chance of getting to the root of it. They may not catch them in the act, may not be able to cite them for that violation, but they have probable cause to investigate further and make contact. We can inspect the vehicles. Vehicles might be illegal. Sometimes we find that they're stolen. Okay, that's obviously going to have an effect. Right? So just because we get there a little late, don't give up on it. Just try to help us out so we can try to solve your problem for you. Okay, racing in the streets with illegal racing vehicles, we will enforce the laws stringently. Okay, we don't, even though he loves to race, he doesn't condone racing in the streets. When I was younger, I used to love to race, but I don't condone racing in the streets. There's no way you can do that safely, okay? And when you think about it, street racing, what do you have? You have a big crowd of young people trying to have fun, and usually they always are having a blast until something terrible goes wrong, okay? But while they're having their great time and they're doing whatever they're doing, people are being distracted. It's just like a cell phone, talking on a cell phone going down the street. We've all done it. We all know we've ended up distracted from time to time and everything. It's the same with street racing. You've got all that, commotion going on and distractions going on. That's where bad things happen. Somebody's playing in the crowd, pushy, shovey going on, joking. Somebody falls out in front of the car as it's speeding by. It's happened. Okay, anything you can imagine that could happen at a street race has happened. Okay, so enforcement is important. We will respond. Hopefully we get out there before they're all gone so we can have some effect. Like he says, they have scanners. They have means of communication amongst themselves. They're smart enough not to put out flyers. Hey, the big race is tomorrow out at the corner of, walk and don't walk or whatever. It's tough for us, but we need the help of the community to communicate to us everything they know so we can enforce it as much as we can. Are there any questions regarding enforcement of street racing or any other traffic offenses?
Sergeant Dunn?
Yes, go
Are
ahead.
most of the vehicles that are involved in street racing, are they confiscated or impounded?
If we catch them if we can say they were definitely involved, because unfortunately with street racing, you pretty much have to see them doing it. If you don't, there's going to be a whole lot of people that aren't involved in the races that have their modified vehicles and everything right there ready to go, but we can't prove that they were involved. So we can't impound those vehicles. We can obviously inspect those vehicles, cite them for whatever violations they have, illegal modifications and such, okay, but we can only impound the ones that are actually involved in the street racing.
And on a lot of the illegal modification as far as exhaust or being lowered, they'd have to bring that back to a factory spec before it's cleared?
Absolutely. They're to be inspected. We put on the citation where they have to go to have them inspected. It's a state inspector, and it's a very expensive fine. Deputy Montesquioca was commenting on the parents or grandparents when you buy cars. Well, even if you don't buy a car, even if your son or daughter or grandson or granddaughter purchase their own vehicle, keep an eye on it. If they start the modifications, number one, those modifications, sure, they can go to Cragen Auto Parts, they can go to Chief Auto, any one of these places, or buy them online, parts to modify and make their vehicles more powerful. The only thing is most of them, not always, but most of those modifications are illegal. They're not allowed in the state of California. Therefore, that vehicle is illegal. Therefore, the vehicle can be subject to being impounded, and with that, that means they have to make a bunch of modifications to fix the vehicle before it can get approved. There's a whole lot of money that's going to have to be kicked down to get this thing street legal again and cleared by the state inspector. Everything. It could cost $3,000, $5,000 and up. Oftentimes they have to actually replace the entire motor and everything inside. Sometimes people just say, forget it, you can have the car. There's $3, $4, $5, $6 grand or more just down the tubes. So look for the signs. If you see that your kids or grandkids or your kids' friends are getting into what you think might be modifying their vehicles, they usually modify them for one purpose. That's to go faster. And when they want to go faster, they want to beat whoever else that's next to them and everything. It's a temptation that a lot of young people cannot resist and everything. So let's help them resist it and make it so that they can't do it. I was a young person at one time, and I know my parents and grandparents told me a whole lot of things that would go in one ear and out the other. The kids nowadays are no different. But we have to do everything as a parent or grandparent or law enforcement we can to prevent them from getting hurt or hurting somebody else. It's that important. It's about survival, and nobody should have to get hurt or killed as a result of this. Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay, go ahead.
1 second, please. Let me get the mic to you.
Can you hang on just a second? I'm sorry.
You say these guys have scanners?
Yes, ma'am.
While they're actually racing?
Well, they might not be sitting in the cockpit of the race car scanning us, but people in the crowd have scanners listening to our frequencies to hear if a call is going out that we got somebody calling us that there's a street race going on and that we're en route. They do that for the intention of closing up shop, getting out of town.
Out there on 40th East in G, and it's fresh rubber because I ride my bike up there.
Right.
Like every go.
Yeah.
And I think I heard them about 12:30 the other night. So should I call the watch deputy on my own phone, or?
If you hear that they're out there racing, absolutely. You can call 911. We're talking a life-threatening thing. Bad things occur from races. Not every one of them, street races. Drinking, our response that much faster when you try to get out there and try to catch. Correct.
But I'm purposely sleeping with my window open so I can hear this stuff going on.
Right.
So it won't do me any good to call the watch desk or.
Well, do you and us a lot better to call 911 if you believe a street race is going on. If you're really not sure, well, then you can go ahead and call the desk and report what you're suspecting. Okay. Any other questions regarding the street racing and the traffic enforcement? Okay, do we have time? Okay, I want to go over a few things here that I call it going back kind of to the basics. Same thing we all learned when we first started reading the DMV books, studying for our licenses. And it's the same stuff that kids today are learning when they're studying for their licenses and they're taking their tests and everything. There's just a few things that if we all concentrate on it, and it's not just kids, but it's us adults also, that we might be able to save ourselves from injury or death or others and everything. But these are things that I oftentimes see causing traffic collisions and everything. Number one, intersections. You come to a four-way stop. So often I see collisions occur where somebody runs a stop sign. It's pretty obvious who's at fault, right? I mean, the person who ran the stop sign, the other person stopped. So the other person is seriously injured or killed, and the person that ran the stop sign obviously is at fault and, will file appropriately with the district attorney's office and everything. The problem is, all too often, that accident could have been prevented from the other party, okay? People will sit there, if they survive the accident, they'll argue till they're red in the face. I had the right of way. He didn't stop. He ran the stop sign. And it's true. But is it worth dying just because you have the right of way? What I'm trying to get at is when we come to a stop sign, it sounds like common sense, it should be, but we stop fully. We don't do a California stop, which a lot of people think is legal. Now, you wouldn't believe the calls I get where people think a California stop. A slow rolling stop through the stop sign is not a stop.
And the cop was sitting right there too.
Thank you.
That was even bad.
Anyways, we must come to a complete stop before or at the limit line. When we come to the stop, we must look both directions. And that doesn't mean we just do this. Look down the road. Look a ways down. Because people run stop signs. And we know this. If you see a car that's flying your direction from either side, there's a good possibility that person's not going to stop, or they're not going to be able to stop in time. They may slam on their brakes at the last second and go skidding through the intersection, but if you take off under the opinion, I have the right of way, this person's going to stop, you could be dead. Or passengers in your vehicle, passengers on the side closest to the vehicle if it's coming from the right. So the fact that we had the right of way did not protect us or save us from serious injury or death. And it doesn't help us any afterwards. If you're dead, your family is going to suffer greatly, and they're going to suffer for a long time. If you're seriously injured, obviously your family and yourself are going to suffer. Other people in the other car, even though they're at fault, do we want to see them suffer tremendous injury or death? No. I'm not trying to put the blame off of that person and put it on you. All I'm saying is let's take some responsibility. Let's know that there's people out there that are either on their phone being distracted, or they're in a hurry and they're thinking, you know what, I've gone through this zone a million times. There's never somebody stopped at the stop sign. I'll make it, and I'll make up 30 seconds. Every time I do that intersection, I'll make up an extra 30 seconds. I might get to wherever I'm going on time. Whatever the case may be, it's not worth the gamble, because that's exactly what it is. It's a gamble. Stop, look both ways, all the way down. Don't just look, but know what you're looking at. Make sure it's clear, and then go. If you see a vehicle coming, just wait. Just make sure. That 30 seconds that you might save isn't worth it. Make sure that don't just wait until they do a dip, because a lot of times people will dip a little bit, they're thinking about stopping, and they change their mind and they take off again. Wait and make sure they're coming to a stop. Then go. You just survived, your passengers survived, and so did the other people. It's very, very important. Along the same lines, another thing that probably is the biggest causal factor of traffic collisions in the city limits of Lancaster and possibly every city are left turns. And I know this is no strange thing to any of us here. People in a left turn lane, or it's one-way streets on each, or one lane on each side, preparing to turn left, and they turn left in front of the oncoming traffic. The other traffic had the right-of-way. Yeah, let's say it's an intersection, you both have green lights. I want to turn left, people coming towards me want to continue on straight. Obviously they have the right-of-way, but the lights turned yellow for both of us. I want to turn left. Oh, okay, I assume this guy's going to stop. We cannot assume. We cannot assume. People are assuming this every day, and they're getting in collisions every day. Some people are dying from it. Let's not assume. Let's wait until that person comes to a stop. All too often we will see that they're not stopping. They continue on because they think they can make that yellow light also, and they don't expect you to turn in front of them because they've got the right-of-way. So be very careful on left turns. Very careful. Just watch. Make sure you know what the intentions are of the other party. If you're unsure, don't risk it. It is not worth your life or the life of your passengers, family members, or friends, or the other parties. Let me look through my notes, see if there's anything else here.
Sergeant Dunn, if you don't mind, I want to interject something. In addition to looking, as he said, when you come to a complete stop, well, you should come to a complete stop. What we tell our pedestrians, but I myself do it in my car, make sure you look at that driver. We tell pedestrians, don't step off the curb to cross the street, or we tell kids, don't step off the curb to walk your bike across the street until you look at that driver. Now, obviously, they may not be looking at you, but the tip is to look them in the eye to make sure that you know they see you. And I know it's more difficult in a vehicle, but I try to do that when I'm driving, because unfortunately I've seen a lot of people up here run red lights. And actually another thing I do, I actually did it this morning on the way to work. When the light turns green, I always check both directions before I head out on the green light, because I have seen so many people run red lights, and a few of them have actually been, thank God I didn't move or I would have been hit by these people. But anyway, I always try to check both directions before I start my car when the light turns green.
Thank you. That was one of the points that I was going to hit. No, I'm glad you did, because I actually read over it, missed it in my notes. But that's very important. And it's the same thing as the right-of-way. We have the green light. We know we have the right-of-way. All too often we jump on the gas and we start heading out. And we're assuming that everybody else is going to stop for us. We have a question in the back. Go ahead, sir.
One of the driving schools I took years ago, one of the main things they taught us was there's two types of accidents, avoidable and unavoidable, and that right-of-way is not yours until it's been yielded to you.
Thank you. It's a good point.
I've always kind of, but we all make mistakes sometimes. So.
Absolutely. That's the thing. We are all human. We all make mistakes. Sometimes they're semi-intentional mistakes because we're trying to beat the clock, beat the yellow light turning red, and most of the time they're unintentional. That's why we call them accidents. We didn't do it on purpose. I don't think very many people intentionally slam into somebody else. If you slam into somebody else intentionally, we just committed an act of assault, not an accident, not a traffic accident. Okay. One last thing I'd like to harp on, and this is something dear to my heart, seat belts. You all hear it, seat belts. We all harp on seat belts and everything. But I've been on the department for 27 years now. I've seen a whole lot of traffic accidents. Even though I didn't work traffic, I still am a first responder to the scene of an accident numerous times when I was working as a crime car. Code 3, lights and sirens, go to the scene. I'm the first responder before a traffic unit or paramedics gets there or such. And for years before the seatbelt laws, most of us didn't wear seatbelts. That was just common, and that's how we were raised, and that was normal. But you wouldn't believe how many people I saw dead as a result. Since the law has been enacted, there have been so fewer people involved. When you talk about the percentages of traffic collisions. There's more collisions. Seatbelts aren't preventing collisions, but they are, for the amount of collisions that are occurring, the percentages, there's so fewer collisions caused by, serious injury caused by not having seatbelts and everything. More people are wearing seatbelts. I look at collisions that you can look at it and you say, oh, there's no way that person survived. That person's dead. I'm walking up on a dead person. How tragic. And you get up to that car where you can barely even see inside the cab because it's about yay big. That person's alive. And the fire department uses their jaws of life, and they cut off with the saw the roof, and they pry open that cab, and that person is actually alive. 99% of those with a seatbelt or without a seatbelt, no way. No way. So I'm here to tell you, seatbelts save lives. Yes, in a few instances, the seatbelt might actually be worse. You might be worse off because you had your seatbelt, but most of the time, by far, most of the time, you will have a much higher probability of surviving with your seatbelts on. So please, for yourselves, for your kids, for your friends, anybody that you know, insist that they wear seatbelts if they're in your car or if you have any control over it. If your kids are getting into somebody else's car, make sure and make it a habit for them that they won't get in that car unless seatbelts are working properly and everything. Get out of the car. It's not worth the gamble. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I also wanted to know, there have been times when I've been driving and I've seen young children in front seats without seatbelts.
Yes, ma'am.
And I just wanted to know what I could do. It's just one of the many things that gets under my skin, and you just want to look at that parent and like, really, what are you thinking? So what can I do? I mean, can I write down a license plate number? What is the consequence for them?
Whenever you see, it's a violation of the law. Whenever you see a violation of the law, if whoever the offender is in a vehicle, always get the license plate, okay? After you get that license plate, now we're talking an emergent situation, okay? And this is the only time you can call on your cell phone when you're driving is when it's an emergency, and that means 911. An emergency meaning I need to go get medications for my mother because she's really ill. That's not considered an emergency in the state legislature's eyes, and therefore you'll still be in violation of the cell phone laws. But you're seeing a law being broken. You know the dangers of that, what the ramifications can be. Safely follow the vehicle, get the license plate, and try to make the call and give us the information. Don't pursue it. If she starts driving 70 miles an hour, don't go 70 miles an hour. Do not violate vehicle codes in order to keep up with this person who's committing an infraction in the eyes of the state. It's not worth your life. It's not worth it. It's not worth violating, and you getting cited too. But yes, bring it to our attention. If we're lucky, we'll have a unit close to the area where you're at, and they'll be right on you. Sometimes we're not that lucky. Oftentimes we're not that lucky. But sometimes we are that lucky, and then we'll take over. The person that you're on the phone with the desk will say, okay, back off, the deputy's got him. And then we'll take action. Now the deputy's going to see the violation. He can act. He can enforce. Okay? It's a very good question. Thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead, sir.
Kids on skateboards, are they considered a pedestrian? Or I just happened to think about this the other night. I was pulling out by Vaughn's 30th in Palmdale, and it was dark, and some kid on a skateboard, I'd seen him on the sidewalk, but all of a sudden he's crossing right in front of me as I'm making the left turn out of the parking lot.
He would either be considered a pedestrian or a vehicle, and he's not. A skateboard is not considered a vehicle in the eyes of state legislature. Okay, so he would be considered a pedestrian, which means he can't run out in front of you if you don't have lights or anything. He can only do it when it's legal. Okay, either at a crosswalk, but he's also got to, make sure that it's clear before he goes crossing. Doesn't mean you can just run over him intentionally, obviously. And I know you wouldn't.
I didn't see him until the last second. I'm like, oh man, where'd he come from?
And unfortunately, fatal collisions occur that way. We've had our bad experiences out here in the city, not recently. It's been quite a while since we've had a nighttime bicycle accident, no lights, type of situation, but those occur. I think we've all had probably near misses with those types of things, but the fatals do occur. And yes, that is illegal, but there's a whole lot of kids, not just kids, some adults, some young adults that are doing that on skateboards, bicycles, those little rocket racers, that are illegal to be on the street or sidewalk. Okay, so if you see it, it's tough to get there and catch them in the act because usually they're zipping home or something like that. But if it's something like she was saying that's a constant thing that's occurring at the same place, the same time, all the time, bring it to our attention. I'm the traffic sergeant. My name is Sergeant Brian Dunn. Okay, you can call the station and ask for Sergeant Dunn. Okay, tell me what the problem is and where it is. And what I will do is I will ask you a series of questions trying to get as much information about it as I can. The times, the area, descriptions as best I can, and I will ask for your name and your phone number. Now, I'm not going to be putting out your name to the bad guys on the street or with the press or anything else, but it's so I can call you back if another question arises. Let's say my guys are out there looking for them. You're saying it happens every night at this spot at this time, and my guys are out there at that spot at that time, and it's not happening. Now, maybe I need to ask a few more questions. Did they move? What happened to these guys? And sometimes So I need information from the public to help us help you guys. So I'll ask all those questions, and you're more than welcome to call me and follow up. And I appreciate calls. You can call me as often as you think you need to if you have people violating traffic laws. Any other questions? Okay, that's pretty much a wrap for me. Deputy Montestioca, you're back on the floor. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. Sorry. All right, I'm just going to touch back on the illegal street racing. A couple of good points that Sarge brought up and both sergeants brought up. But, get involved with your kids. And the reason I say that is Jill had brought up a good point. She's listening to the street racers. She goes out there and she sees, the rubber and then the graffiti. Well, believe it or not, the street races also attracts gangs. Okay, Ontario PD did that. Their one sting, and they had an undercover officer doing their thing, and right in front of them, the guy pulls out a gun and starts shooting at the other street racers. Okay, that's what we don't want. We say get involved with your kids because that's what we don't want our kids to do, is to get involved in that kind of stuff. Another thing you look out for, too, is if they do have a car, where are they getting these parts? Well, if they're, working over at, Pizza Hut delivering pizza, well, they're not going to be able to afford a $500,000 part. I'm not trying to say that they're out there stealing, but that can also lead to theft. Most of the time, kids go out, they can't afford it, they'll steal it. Or they will have someone else steal it and pay the money to get that part. So, little things to look out for. Again, we are trying to tell people that, illegal street racing, of course, is illegal. You can't do that. Sergeant Graham said, hey, you can go out to these tracks and do it. A gentleman back there said there's, Willow Springs or Bakersfield. There's other places you can go do this kind of stuff. But, just little key things to watch out for. The gang thing. Pay attention to their friends. Who's coming over? How long they're going to be out. What are they doing? What are you doing with the car? This should be signs of you, hey, I need to watch out for what's going on. Because bottom line is, accountability. You got to make sure that whatever happens, it's going to be, you're accountable for them. If they're on your insurance policy, they get into an accident, you're going to have to pay for it. Okay? That's the other thing you'll have to look out for is that car is going to be insured under your policy with that driver. If they get into an accident, well, you know what? You just bought someone a new house or another car, or, God forbid, if they take someone's life, now, their family's going to come after you civilly. So there's a lot of things to remember. Teenage kids want to go out and have fun. Sarge and, both Sarge and everybody in here. We were young once, and we went out and did our thing, but things back then were a little bit more different than they are now. Obviously, populations are growing, so we have more people out there. And then also the lack of experience on the teenage drivers that are out there. You know, they don't have the experience that we do in driving. They just don't. They think they can go fast and handle a car. Well, they really can't. Through the Sheriff's Department, you know, we have to go through our EVOC training. They teach us how to drive that way. And, you know, as much fun as it is, you really do have to pay attention, because if you're driving fast or lights and sirens on and you make a wrong turn, you don't slow down, the car's going to get away from you. Okay, and that's just the bottom line. Well, then you throw that in with an inexperienced driver out there street racing. You know, they're going, you know, 80, 90, 100 miles an hour, and they hit the soft shoulder, they overcorrect, they lose control of the car, you know, then people get hurt. You know, along the lines with the street racing too, is if they're out there and they get caught, of course their cars will get towed, they'll get cites, but if you're out there as a spectator, you can also get a ticket for that too. So if, you know, your kids are out there saying, hey, you know, I'm going to go out, but I'm just going to go watch street race. No, they will get a ticket too. So whether you're participating or just being a spectator, you're still going to get in trouble. So just keep that in mind also. We're seeing a slow climb in the cars coming out because, like I said, you know, driving out there, I've been seeing it, so it's starting to come back around. So we're just going to make sure that, you know, everybody's aware that this is happening, but also, again, and I keep emphasizing this, pay attention to what your kids are doing. Accountability is it's going to come back. If you need any more information on any kind of illegal street racing, get on the internet. If you think, you know, parts on the car don't look right, get on the internet, because I guarantee you that if your kids are looking on the internet for that part, then you should be doing the same thing. Because if it's legal, then, you know, we'll be able to put it on. If it's illegal, you'll be able to know. So just, again, just pay attention, just get involved to what your kids are doing. With that, anybody have any questions? No questions? Cool. Then I'm going to go ahead and let Shelley come up and you know, continue and do what she's got to do.
Thank you. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to add a few things. Please make sure you take the handouts we have in the back. One actually is a parent-teen training guide. However, it's a good refresher for adults as well. So please feel free to take extras for your family and friends. And if after tonight you'd like more copies, feel free to call the Public Safety Office and we can put those in the mail or arrange for you to pick them up downstairs at reception. Craig, did you want to add anything before we?
Yeah, we're going to go over this CD in a second here, but just for the parents, you know, to set the tone for the children. We all know we're not supposed to be on the cell phone and we're not supposed to be texting, but we're supposed to have both hands on the wheel. We're not supposed to be, you know, trying to get CDs off the front seat, drinking a big gulp, putting on makeup, shaving, whatever else happens to be. Set the tone for your children. Concentrate when you're driving by having two hands on the wheel. Don't have stuff hanging around from the front of your mirror that distracts it, puts a blind spot in there. Just kind of set the tone for the kids. And also for the gentleman from Cal Club. Willow Springs up the road here. It's a great area to go to. It's about 15 minutes away. Get off on Rosemont Boulevard between 60th and 90th out there. Just look up on the side of the hill. You'll see all the bright green walls. Usually they have a lot of stuff going every weekend up there. You can get involved in racing. It's $10 for the whole weekend up there. You can't beat the price. You get in the pits, the hot pits. Usually they have professional go-karts up there at the go-kart track. They have a drifting track. If you're into drifting, they have the Streets of Willow. They have the regular race track. People up there will help you get into racing. So it is a great venue to go to, and it's only 15 minutes away.
Before we show this in Texticated, I wanted to show this tonight because I felt it would help with our message. Since texting, we've touched on it all through this evening's presentation, but as we know, it's no longer legal to text while driving, and teenagers aren't allowed to be even speaking on their phones. And I have to actually say, probably in the last couple months, I've seen more adults on their cell phones driving than teenagers, but I always keep my eye out, and it infuriates me, but they're still, not talking on the Bluetooth. They're actually have their handheld. So, but I thought I got this through an email actually some months back, and actually I shared it with Sergeant Dunn, and then he forwarded on to our school deputies and hoped that they could help spread the word at the high schools. But I just felt that it was very impactful. So we'll go ahead and show this and then take any final questions and comments. Can you just move it for me, please? If you just, I think, hit the space bar or enter, it should do it. Basically, an 18-year-old girl plowed directly into a rear of another vehicle. She was traveling 70 miles an hour. Apparently, she never saw the other vehicle. She had been texting at the time. You can see that she hit the other vehicle dead center with no apparent attempt to slow down or evade the collision. As you can see from the impact to her 2008 GMC Yukon, she hit dead center. The female driver escaped unscathed. There was no blowout wet road, curve, hill, or fog to limit visibility. The driver clearly should have been able to see the traffic conditions at least a half mile ahead. If she had been paying attention to her driving rather than texting, the accident could have been avoided. She nearly killed a beautiful 3-year-old child. This is actually a personal look into the human cost of texting while driving, and this little boy named Griffin was the victim of the accident. Griffin, the day after 4 hours of surgery to prepare multiple skull fractures, as you see here in this picture, he would surely have died or been severely disabled had it not been only minutes away. He was flown by helicopter to a world-class medical center and was operated on immediately. This is day 4. He was watching a movie on his dad's iPhone. The swelling of his head will go away, but the scar, if you can see it from ear to ear, will be with him forever. He's feeling better in this picture, having macaroni and cheese. Day 5, feeling much better. It says, my granddad bought me my very own iPod and loaded it with movies. So as you can see, he's doing much better. He finally got his tubes out. He got to go home the day of this photo. And you can see how much the swelling has improved in just 3 days. It's almost unbelievable that it's only been 5 days since the accident that nearly claimed his life. All the medical experts involved expect him to make a full recovery. In only 6 weeks, he'll be allowed to be just as active as any other 3-year-old. Phone company records of text messages are irrefutable and accurate to the second. It would be an easy matter to prove in court that a person was texting at the time of the accident. As with drunken driving, a jail sentence will be mandatory whenever anyone is injured by an intoxicated driver. And I just, again, wanted to show that because I felt the pictures were very impactful to show, unfortunately, this little boy obviously is very lucky to be alive and recovered very well, but as we know, that's not always the case, so I just wanted to share that with you. And again, we wanted to do this presentation since school is nearly out for the year, and as we know, with summer comes, it seems to be more of the drag racing, and although all year long, obviously we know we have to be more aware as we drive. So I know we've focused a lot on teenagers, but again, we know adults are just as guilty. But please review all the road laws with your driving laws with your teenagers. Please tell your friends and family, especially if you know they're not a good driver. And again, I encourage you to take all of our handouts. We also have an aggressive driving assessment that you can take yourself. It's actually from CHP. And I highly recommend that you review this booklet. Although it's a parent-teen guide, I think it can be helpful for all of us. Did you want to add any more?
Yeah, just one other thing. Don't drive while you're impaired. Naturally, drugs and alcohol, that makes the news. But If you're working long hours or commuting and you start falling asleep on the freeway, pull over, stop, take about a 15, 20-minute nap. You can sometimes you're driving down the road and you see somebody you think is under the influence of alcohol, and really they're just tired from working too many hours, and they start weaving just like a drunk driver would. Try to get their attention sometimes. Pull up next to them, honk at them. You can see them start nodding, tell them to pull over. But if you are driving, do pull over. And if you are upset about something, whether you just had a breakup with somebody or somebody in your family has passed away, that's not a good time to drive. And if you're upset and mad, same thing with road rage. If you're mad, do not drive.
And we have a handout from the Students Against Destructive Decisions, and on the back, as they mentioned during their presentation, they have a pledge. I encourage you to take these to hand out to any teenagers, whether they're your own or family or friends, and even as adults. I think it's good to review, and it's a refresher for us. And I just want to say thank you again to them, although they left. I just met them last week, but I felt that their presentation pertained to the message we were trying to get out tonight. So I was very pleased that on such notice they were able to come, and especially since it's a very personal message for them. So I appreciate their time and effort. Are there any last questions?
Yeah, I got one more thing to add, and then
Microphone, please. No, you can push it right there. Okay.
along the line what Shelley said, right now with the graduations coming, we have a Safe and Sober Graduation press conference on Thursday over at the Union High School School District. Antelope Valley Union High School School District. And that's basically telling everybody that for the next couple weeks, Sheriff's Department, CHP, are going to be out there in full force trying to discourage underage drinking when you're out there celebrating. Again, accountability. If you are caught being the parent, throwing these parties with underage drinking, you're going to get in trouble. Okay? So what we're trying to tell the parents is, you know what? No drinking, no alcohol. Make sure that they have a good time. Make sure that they're able to, live to see 21 so they can go out and legally drink. So if by any chance you happen to throw a party, again, make sure there's no alcohol. Make sure to watch the kids that are actually coming into the party. They'll sneak alcohol in. What we're trying to do is we're trying to prevent any tragedies from happening during graduation. Seniors, they're going to graduate. They're going to go out. Hey, you know what? They accomplished something. We want to be able to see them grow up to be, productive citizens of the community. So again, it's going to be, happening here until graduations are over, and we have a couple graduations set up in the next couple weeks. So if you are planning to do that, please don't, because again, you will get into in trouble. You will suffer legal consequences. So I'm just going to end with that. Hopefully, we have good graduations, good parties, but no drinking and no accidents, and no one gets hurt. Any questions? Okay.
Oh, there is a question?
Just curious, what is the cost of the ticket if you're caught talking on the phone and driving?
It's only $20.
No, it actually, didn't it go up? I thought I read in the newspaper it's $132 now.
Yeah, it's $132, and we had to inquire and find out if there were any fees on top of that or anything. But basically, we're being told that $132 is the total fine.
And they're saying too that if you have someone in your car under the age of 18 and they don't have their seatbelt on, it's another $400.
I don't think it's another $400, but you are responsible. And you will be cited.
Whatever
Put his mic on.
You will be cited.
On the radio says you're responsible for that person not being buckled up.
Correct, and I'm glad you raised that question, because it's like he says, we all have to be responsible. If you're the driver, you're responsible for everybody in the car. Even if you're 17 years old, you're responsible for everybody in that car. And obviously, if it's a 17-year-old, that means responsibility is going to go up to the parents, even if they're not in the car, even if they didn't authorize it. Civil responsibility. So, the bottom line is we just need to keep our seatbelts, everybody. We all need to keep our seatbelts on, stay alive, stay healthy, and we definitely want our youth to be around for a long time. So let's encourage them to use their seatbelts and make sure everybody else in the vehicle is doing the same.
And I'm glad the citation, it went up from, because it was $20 when it first passed.
Correct.
And I thought that was ridiculously low, so I'm glad it's gone up. I think it should be higher, but $132 is a good start. Any other questions? Yes.
Seems like a good program to take to the schools to get, I expected a lot more young people in here. I work right next to one of the places where they do car modifications and so forth, and I think the students, the young people, need to know about the ramifications of street racing and what the options are. And, possibly even do something to, some free tickets out to Willow Springs or Button Willow or Cal Speedway. When we race at Cal Speedway, it's free to spectators. Need to get the people out there, get them involved in that way. But getting in front of the schools, the high schools, I think that'd be a great thing to do also.
Sergeant Dunn, I'm sorry I'm putting you on the spot, but do you know if the school deputies discuss this at their campuses?
They do. It's not something they talk about, daily or weekly or anything, but usually once or twice during the year the subject is brought up during meetings that they have at school. And as Sergeant Graham said, that with his thing that he's done with the department, they've brought it to the schools too. But I agree with you 100%. It needs to be brought more, and I think that's an awesome suggestion. I don't know if it's ever been done before, but when it is being brought up with the schools, if we can get the Cal City and Willow Springs and Button Willow and all these raceways to cooperate, which we probably can, to throw in those free tickets or at least pamphlets, explaining their programs. I think that's an awesome idea.
Thank you for that. And we will continue to help spread the word, and that's why we wanted to do this presentation. We always hope for a full room, and this was actually planned before today became a voting day. So that was another concern. But we replay this on the city's website and on City Channel 28 if you have cable. So, and we do get word that we have a lot of people watching, so hopefully that will help spread the word. But we will continue to spread the message. Thank you very much for coming. I hope you found it helpful. Thank you.